Hi everyone and welcome for this new tutorial how to paint Vansar. On this tutorial I'm going to show you how to paint it very easy and quickly by using a brush, airbrush and contrast paint. Don't hesitate to ask if you have any question in the comment section, and if you want, don't hesitate to like and share this tutorial. Thank you and let's go for the paint. First of all, I make a base with black primer, and I use airbrush to push a lot of white. I push a lot of white just because I'm going to use contrast paint. And as you know, it's very important when you use contrast paint to have very white color at beginning, because it's going to be more easy to have nice highlight. So I'm going to use directly from the bottle the Yanden yellow from contrast paint, and I push this color on all parts of my model. I want to be in yellow at the end. For this new tutorial I'm going to show you on the different miniatures, not necessary on all of them, but it's very important when you use contrast and ink to let the pet totally dry before making the next step. So when you paint on 6 different model, for example right here, that lets time to the first model to be totally dry when you start when you finish the last model. So as you can see, I use some Gulliman flesh on the face. I really think the Gulliman flesh is the best for the classical flesh color. And now I'm going to use some black contrast just on the base. Don't hesitate if you want to dilute the contrast paint to use a medium. It's very important in my opinion, because it's going to give you the possibility to have different layer of contrasts and have a better control of the paint. I use basilic and gray for the weapon and all the parts I want in non-metallic metal at the end. If you don't have the basic and gray, so you can use the black color, but just by diluting 5 times with medium color. If you have any question, don't hesitate to post in the comment. I will try to ask you very quickly. And when I finish this step, the miniatures look like that. As you can see in a comparative, more I'm going to paint the same kind of model, more the result will be good. For the next step, I will use some airbrush. So I use white from Procolor paint. It's a special paint only for airbrush. And I put only this kind of paint in my airbrush because it's more easy to clean my airbrush after. And for me it's very important that airbrush will be like a brush, just a tool, without too much step to clean them. As you can see, I use the whites on the weapon. I'm going to try always to reach a small part, and more I'm going to paint, smaller will be the surfaces I'm going to reach. When I start painting, sometimes I change my mind, so it's pretty easy with airbrush and ink to make the different step to change in the direction you want. Remember to don't stay too long on the same part with airbrush, because the hair is going to push your color and make some spider line. So that's really not nice. So don't hesitate to just put a little bit and move all time to let the paint being totally dry when you come back. It's always more easy to make a quick step if the white is not enough strong in your mind, so you can come back and make it again to have a more strong white. I remember when I make my tutorial, I always make it 4 times more quick, so take your time. Now I'm going to start with some Canary Yellow from Procolor, and I'm going to try to touch only the different body glove, the parts who are not in black for a non-metallic. So take your time once again and just make it 2 or 3 times if necessary, but don't stay too much long on only one part. For me it's very interesting to paint different models in the same time and in a very fast and quick way, because you can use different kind of method and learn a lot of things, more sometimes than on a competitive model for Golden Demon or anything else, because you are going to be more free to use different kind of techniques. And sometimes for my opinion and in my mind, when I start to make competition miniatures, I always try to use methods I already control. So that's a good point when you have some quick paint to do. Now, as you can see, I use the Flesh 1 color from Procolor always to push my highlights on the head and on all flesh part. Now I'm going to make my second layer of contrast, but this time I'm going right here to dilute 2 times, so 1 part of medium and 1 part of yellow on all of the suite. So it's going to be less covering contrast color, and that lets me more control on the contrast. When I use the contrast, as you can see, I always try to push my brush to put my color in the first time, and after to push my brush in the shadow surfaces. Contrast is not very easy to control, but it's a pretty good element to use with airbrush, because airbrush is going to give you very nice transition, and after that contrast is going to give you more contrast on your paint. I come back on the head once again by using the same Gulliman flesh, but this time diluted with a little bit of medium. Once again, if you want, don't hesitate. If you think it's always better to make 1 layer with contrast, and if you think the result is not enough dark in your mind, so you can make a second layer. Just wait the first layer that will be totally dry before pushing your second layer. Same way, I'm going to use Basilican Gray, but this time diluted by 1 portion of medium and 1 portion of Basilican Gray, so it's going to be less covering, and we will see more easily the highlights we push in white with airbrush. Don't hesitate, once again, if you have any question. If you want to support me to make you more tutorial, don't hesitate to take a look to my Patreon page, so you can support me every month to share you more and more tutorial. It's always interesting to paint the same kind of model in the same time, because model after model, miniatures after miniatures, you are going to learn and understand in a better way every volume of your piece. If you want just some miniatures to play and make it quickly, I think just using this different step will be okay. But if you want to continue, I'm going to show you how to do it better and better. At beginning, I paint the 6 model in the same time, one after another. And at the end, you are going to see when I finish all this basic step, I'm going to focus on one miniature by one miniatures and finish it just one by one. I use some ultramara blue on every clauses. There are not there are just a few parts on the street, so it's going to be a very quick step. Now I'm going to, as you can see, dilute the white to have the consistency of milk, and I'm going to push my color on every edges at first, and after on every surfaces I want to be more and more clear. At beginning I make some line, and after I am going to tap to create just some points of highlight. This so now I'm going to focus only on these miniatures, but after I'm going to make the same on the different model. Focus on only one miniatures is pretty interesting, because now I can finish it, and it's a real pleasure to finish something. This is the same with brush and airbrush. Don't stay too much long on only one part. Just wait the paint that will be totally dry, so you can come back if you want to have better contrast and make one more layer. Now I start the yellow on the street. So for the yellow, I'm going to mix a little bit of white into the yellow I use on my airbrush. So it's the canary yellow, and I push all my different highlights to push once again more contrast. Depending on your skills in miniatures paint, don't try necessarily to finish perfectly. Just finish not perfect, but you just need to be happy with your results, happy to play it if you want to play it, and after have a good motivation to come back and paint again. This last step is more long than all the other steps, because it's the last point. As we a lot of times says, the last 10% of painting will take you 90% of time. So I come back on the head, on the face, with some barbarian flesh, and for the second highlight I'm going to use barbarian flesh mixing with a little bit white. If you want something more clear, so you just have to add more and more white. Just take care always to reach a smaller and smaller surfaces when you paint, so you are going to have a better transition. You can see that I use the side of my brush and not only the end of my brush, and I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. I always check in water bottle, move my brush, remove a little bit of water, and just have some few paint on the end of my brush. Not too much paint on your brush. That will be the best way to control your dilution and your paint. After using some red leather on the hair, I'm going to use some orange directly to push my highlights on the hair. Now the step is more and more quick and small, but it's going to give more life to the miniatures. So it's most important step, but you need to have less paint. And right now I use some dark sea blue to push my shadow on the head and on the hair. But once again, take care about this paint because it's very covering paint, so you need to dilute a lot and focus on just some few steps. I continue by adding more highlights on the streets. For this highlight, I just have to add a little bit more white. And now I'm going to use only white to push more highlights on the base. Always in the same direction, pushing more highlights on the edges, and after that create my transition by using the side of my brush and pushing color. Don't hesitate to like and share this tutorial. That will be help me to have more subscriber on YouTube, and that's always be a pleasure to exchange with all my skills. So now I use some red color in the shadow of my weapon, and as you can see, I'm going at the end to use some pigments to pushing more red into the different element and to show that's post-apocalyptic game. I'm going to use some turquoise on the two different elements around the head, and I'm going to push turquoise and after just a little bit white into this to push and to create my highlight. You can, by the way, make a very light layer on the face, on the side of the face, to create some other source lightning effect. And after I just push a little bit white on this, and after just a line, and after just some points I tap on this surface. I come back with more white to create more and more contrasts on the mini. That's one of the most important things if you want to create some non-metallic metal effect, is to have very, very, very strong contrasts on the miniatures. I'm going to use some chestnut ink just to create all the distinction between the different parts of the armor. And this is the same color I'm going to use to create some impact on the body glove, but I will show you that at the end. This kind of lightning is very important because it's going to make more distinction between the different parts. So now I'm going to use some pigment. So I take my pigment, I push a little bit water inside, and after I tap this pigment into the different recesses. So it's going to stay in this place, and when it will be totally dry, it will be clearly like some rust. Don't use too much. This last step will be very, very small, and you just have to put some few color, not too much. Pigment is a pretty interesting method to have different kinds of effects on your miniatures. The different texture is going to give more life to your minis, and I always put a little bit pigment on the base and on the foot to create a transition between the base and the miniatures. Now I'm going to start pushing a little bit battle damage. I'm going to use a chestnut ink, the same one, and after I make some very few and small points, and under these small points I'm going to put a line of white to create an effect with more volume. Don't use too much battle damage on this kind of very small miniatures, because it's going to give you a less right legibility. So thank you for watching this tutorial. I really hope you enjoy it. Don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel, to like this tutorial, to share to your friend. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and don't hesitate to follow me on Patreon too, to support me into my passion. I really hope you enjoy this, and see you later.